All right, folks, welcome on into another edition of the High School Huddle, your one-stop shop for everything and all things Section 5 sports. I'm AJ Feldman. He's Carl Jones. And Carl, we officially put the wraps on the winter sports season on Tuesday night with our News 8 Primetime 585 Elite Awards. We were both part of the show. The fall, we kind of just assisted with everything. And I got to say, it was a really fun time there on Tuesday night, seeing everybody dressed to the nines and celebrating all the winter achievements that we had this year in Section 5.
Yeah, it's cool to see the people that you're talking about all year on TV and being able to see them in person, things of that nature is always dope. But like you said, though, like dressing a nine and looking dope, I'm just thinking about when I was in high school, I'm like, ooh, I would have did this, I would have did that. And I'm not going to lie, the boys and gals, they did their thing. They looked real good. I don't know if they was, a little inspired by what they saw in the WNBA draft and how those ladies were out there stunting. Whatever the case may be, wherever they drew their inspiration from, they looked good. They obviously, hopefully had a good time. But it was always dope just to see the people that you talk about so much and finally get a chance to see them in person.
Yeah, obviously we get to do some interviews and things like that, but it's rare to have this many people that, we talk about them. And to a certain extent, some of these players, they're kind of just names on a paper, especially, the skiers who we don't really get out to see, the bowlers we get from maybe one day in sectionals. So it's really fun to, shake some hands, kiss some babies as it is and interact with the people. We will be having that as our huddle next week instead of the draft. So if you want to catch that show in its entirety, you can also see it online at rochesterfirst.com. It's going to air this Saturday as well. Another date, I believe, the Sunday after that. So many ways to see it. But I want to touch on another thing that you mentioned, the WNBA draft. Carl was down there in Brooklyn. Edison Tech, great legend, Deasia Fair getting drafted by the two-time defending champs, Las Vegas Aces. Just kind of take us through that whole experience and what it was like to see one of Rochester's finest on the big stage.
Yeah, the event in its entirety was kind of cool to see. Obviously, over the past 2 years or so, the popularity with the women's game has kind of exploded. And a lot of that with Caitlin Clark, a lot of that with some of the other fantastic ladies, Donna Staley, Angel Reese, the list goes on. And just to see Rochester's own be involved in this same breath conversation amongst those greats was just dope to see. And it's funny down there, you see, like, like the women's basketball players are tall. Like okay, yeah, I know Carmilla Cardoso is like 6'7", cool, but you don't feel 6'7" until you see 6'7" in person. But then you get to Deasia and she's 5'5", and that just goes to show you just how talented she is. All the hoops and hurdles she had to get up and over to get to this point, because Caitlin Clark not short. I don't know what, like, I know she a point guard. She's still 6'1". Like, so to put in perspective on how darn dominant and how impressive it is to see Deasia do the thing that she did. I talked about it on TV the other day, but I was like, it didn't stop her from averaging over 30 in high school, didn't stop her from being an All-American in college, and it obviously didn't stop her. Her height didn't stop her from getting drafted to the best team in the WNBA. So just shout out to her, and the event in its entirety was kind of dope.
Yeah, the grind will continue. I think it's a much publicized kind of issue over the past weeks, just the amount of roster spots there in the WNBA. I mean, she's drafted by the Las Vegas Aces. She could work her butt off in training camp and show out in the preseason. And, it might not, the numbers crunch might not work into her favor, but she's still got her work cut out for her. But it was just so great to see her. You've gotten the chance to talk to her before at, Monroe Madness. I went out to Syracuse this year, chatted with her as well. Just couldn't be happier for her and all the success she's had, because, talking with Thad in the, the office over the couple weeks and months and whatever, when she left Edison Tech, she was, the player of the year. She put up a whole bunch of numbers, led Edison to some unprecedented heights, really. No one kind of thought this was going to happen. She was just, she put up some numbers. She was going to play UB, which kind of seemed right at the time, but she just worked. She grinded. And, I don't know if anybody thought when she left Section 5 that this was, in her future. Certainly, knowing her, it was a potential, but I don't think anybody expected this from Deasia Fair, to be sure.
I mean, one reason for that is her height, but yeah. I mean, and I know she doesn't want to hear it, and rightfully so. It's been a huge chip on her shoulder the entire step of the way. But I mean, to expect this and the thing that she's done, I, I mean, I remember when she got to Syracuse, the talk was, can she take that leap to Power Five basketball? You know, like that huge leap, because it is a big leap from Group of Five to Power Five. And she made it look seamless. She was the best player on SU's campus from day one. Was all conference in the ACC, a pretty darn good conference in its own right. So shout out to her. She deserves all the flowers and more for the things that she's accomplished so far, and hopefully continues to get in her basketball journey.
And I will say this: I was at the Albany Elite Eight when I walked by Angel Reese, and your thing about the height is like she's like a legit 6'4". Like, people fudge these numbers, height and shoes and whatnot. These girls are impressive. These ladies are impressive. So can't wait to see what Deasia does at the WNBA level. We wish her all the best. Moving on to our show today, diving back in the high school world, the spring sports season kind of getting fully into gear. We've got our first state rankings from the New York State Sportswriters Association. We got girls lacrosse this year. I don't think there actually was girls lacrosse rankings last year. So good to see that the sports writers over there providing these for us and for everyone around the state. Plenty of teams in Section 5, as you would imagine. We'll start off with Class A. 4 teams in the state rankings. At number 7, Rush Henrietta. Number 11, Fairport. 13th ranked Penfield. 19th ranked Pittsford. Kind of the top 4 that we would imagine here out of Section 5. And the one thing I want to jump to right away off the bat is in Fairport. Because, as I just mentioned, 11th ranked in the state, but they suffered a big loss. And I'm not talking about a result a couple of weeks ago. Lily Condis, their star junior, she had the game-winning goal last year in the state championship game. Unfortunately, she tore her ACL in a game earlier this season, so she will obviously be out for the rest of the season. So a big loss for Fairport. We wish her the best in her recovery. So that's certainly going to shake things up. Fairport has a lot of talented players, to say the least, but you lose a player like that off of your roster just to start the season, that's going to be a tough one to bounce back from.
Man, injuries suck. Like they truly do. Like we got robbed of seeing Mariah Watkins' senior season this past year, and it still was a fantastic year, especially in that AA bracket this year. But we all were looking forward to seeing what she could do her final year here, and to see Fairport star player go down as well. It's like man, come on, especially to that dreaded ACL. But like you just alluded to, they got some other ladies that can step up. Ella Pierce is one of them. Katie Malaber. If I don't know if I wasn't too keen with the lacrosse preview coming into the year, but if they had a stronghold on easily taking the brick this upcoming spring, I don't think that's the case no longer. So I think that's what makes this interesting for the other teams in Class A to see what happens from there. But like you alluded to, though, they got some girls over there who are impressive and who are going to have to step up and replace some of the production that is now missing.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about Rush Henrietta off the top at number 7. They already played Fairport, and Condis did play in that game. Rush Henrietta took them down 8-7, so that was a big statement win for there. So certainly at this point, you have to put RH in the pole position. RH also took down Penfield 10-9. A couple days ago, they played Victor, lost 10-8, gave up kind of a big first half lead and kind of made that one close. So certainly Rush Henrietta leading the way. Pittsford, they're down at 19, can't count them out by any stretch of the imagination. But, you just look at this RH team so far, Kate DeWald's got 16 goals, Danielle Garrett, Riley Brown. We talked about some of these names last week, but they've got a handful of players. So this core 4 is going to be really fun to watch down the stretch in Class A as we progress throughout the season.
Agreed, wholehearted. I always forget about this part of the year, where you talk about the other classes, oh yeah, in girls hoops, they got that one class. I'm not going to lie to you. A and B in girls, it's kind of tough. And there is a class of its own that makes it unique to watch.
Yeah, and we'll get right into Class B. 5 teams mentioned in the state rankings so far. As you pointed out, it's going to be a bloodbath there in Class B. Top ranked here in Section 5, of course, no surprise, the 2-time defending state champs from Victor. They're at number 3. At number 5, Canandaigua, they're off to an undefeated start to the season with a 7-0 record. They've already got wins over Mercy, Pittsford, HFL, Irondequoit. So impressive start to their season so far. At number 8, Irondequoit, the aforementioned Eagles. At 12, you've got Spencerport. And at 19, this is kind of the one I want to start our conversation with, the Brighton Bruins. who I sent you out to the Brighton Victor game. It was Friday evening, and you know, full disclosure, I sent you there because Victor is a heck of a lot farther away from Brighton. And we're like, all right, we're going to get some Victor goals, give you nice and easy, in and out. You had a busy day otherwise. But man, the Brighton Bruins are showing they are legit this season.
Man, do not take their 1-4 record lightly. Okay, they played Fairport, like we just gave them some love. Victor, Penfield, who is state ranked as well, and then they took down Pittsford earlier this week, who once again was state ranked up in Class A. They're not the flashiest bunch. I mean, they lost that Victor game 5-4, so I was obviously pulling for goals in that game to a certain extent. But look, they're a team that's clearly not too far off from these top bunches. I mean, Victor is as good as it gets. So are the Fairports, Pittsburghs, and things of that nature. And the schedule doesn't get much easier for them. I'm not gonna lie. They play Baldwinsville, then Rush Henrietta, got Penfield again later in the year. I don't know who made their schedule, but clearly they felt it. They took the line of thinking, we get the toughest schedule during the regular season, and we'll be hard and ready for the postseason. That might work. I'm not gonna lie, because they play a murderous row full of teams. So I got to give the Bruins credit for scheduling these opponents so far. But do not take that record at face value. They are a very, very good team.
Yeah, a 2-goal loss to Spencerport, 4-goal loss to Fairport, the OT loss to Victor, a 1-goal loss to Penfield. I mean, they're learning how to play in these close games. They haven't exactly won them so far this year, but just being in those environments certainly got to help. I want to point out their goalie here. We don't give too much loves to the goalies, typically in lacrosse and other sports. Lauren Russell getting it done in the net. As you mentioned, you hold a Victor team to 4 goals in regulation. Obviously, the defense has a heck of a lot to do with that as well, but you got to give love to the goalie there. So Brighton might make this interesting where, if you have these top 4 teams, you really hope you don't have Brighton in that quarterfinal game, because that's going to be one heck of a matchup. Like we mentioned, Victor leading the way at number 3. They've kind of, not gotten off to the greatest start to this season so far. 2 out of section losses. Like I mentioned, they only beat Brighton by 1. They beat Rush Henrietta by 2. So they're getting their wins. But, the real test is going to be in just 4 days, Canandaigua versus Victor. That is a Friday night game. That'll be the big one to decide who's who in Section 5. And I do want to talk about Irondequoit, because I did get a chance to see them earlier in the season when they lost to Penn Yan. I can't say I was too impressed with the Eagles. They've had some other impressive games. They took down Palmac 15-3. They beat Spencerport, which is a nice win. I saw Spencerport the other day. But a 12-6 loss to Canandaigua. I don't know if I'm ready to put Irondequoit in that class just yet. They're certainly getting another chance to prove themselves. Friday against Victor, Pittsford on the 22nd. So if they can show out in those 2 games, I'll kind of eat my crow, but I don't know if I'm ready to put Irondequoit in that top 10 just yet.
I mean, especially you just saw Spencerport, right? And they got the future Orangeman, Molly Guzik. Ooh, wee. I
was at the Spencerport game. Molly Guzik.
Guzik. Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
I've been saying her name wrong for years. Sorry, man. Sorry, man. Guzik. Okay. Listen, if y'all watching the video version of this, I am not biased whatsoever towards where she's going to school, and I'm not going to be a fan favorite of hers for no particular reason. Oh, my shirt, my helmet, whatever the case may be, I'm looking out for her. But regardless, that's also a team that that you just mentioned a little bit, that they are not going to be an easy out just based off of her and her pedigree and what she brings to the field.
Yeah, especially if she does those draw controls, which, if you can have the ball, the other team can't score when you have the ball. So that's one position that you really want to have a stud, and Spencerport has just that. Let's move over to Class C. Only 7 teams overall in Class C in Section 5, and only 1 getting ranked. The Mercy Monarchs in Class C. Yes, the Mercy Monarchs down in Class C this year. They've kind of been falling in a handful of sports, and they have fallen down to Class C in the classification for the first time since 2017. And they're going to be a force to be reckoned with so far this year. They took down the Titans of Class C, Honeywell Falls Lima, who have won something ridiculous like 9 straight, 12 out of 13, something crazy like that. They took them down 10-8 just 2 days ago. on the 16th. So I don't even think these state rankings even reflect that. So Mercy's probably going to be going up even more. Mia Quagliarella with 3 goals in that game. Maeve Shanahan with 2. Mia Lusardi with 2. Krista Harnischfeger with 2. I know Lusardi is going D1. So they've got a handful of studs where this HFL Mercy game, when we get it come sectional time, could be one of the best that we see, on par with, a Victor Canandaigua in Class B.
That's what I was thinking when I initially saw the rankings. I'm like, okay, where's HFL? Like, they're always the team similar to Brighton. They schedule all these tough teams and don't take their record at face value because they are a very good team that just schedules up. And I'm like, wait a second. They just lost to Mercy. Now, granted, Mercy has been up in previous years, but they're down in Class C. So that's, like you just mentioned, be on the lookout for that one. I know the spring season flies by, so usually you can say in a few months or so, literally next month, they're going to link up and square off against each other once again to see who's comes out on top in Class C. But if I'm going to talk about the HFL, the sophomore now, I believe she was an 8th grader when she popped on the scene. Shea Angelo, phenomenal player as well, leading the way for the Cougars. But yeah, giving the Monarchs their flowers for being the lone rep so far in the rankings for Class C in Section 5.
Yeah, I mean, both these teams are playing really tough schedules. Look at the upcoming slate for Mercy. Penfield, Spencerport, Victor on the schedule, Irondequoit. You look at the same for HFL, Fairport, Rush Henrietta. So these teams are going to be battered and bruised when they probably get to that Class C championship game. And they're going to be, certainly HFL is going to be hungry to knock off Mercy again. Mercy going to be hungry to take HFL off of that Class C throne. And then finally in Class D, no real surprise here. One team ranked in the state. It is the Penn Yan Mustangs. Penn Yan, they won a sectional championship last year. They were very young last year, and so far they're off to a great start this season, and they're at number 2 in the state rankings. So I know we have a lot of trouble kind of taking down the teams from the Long Island area, but this could be a team that does that. They're just behind Cold Spring Harbor, who is 4-1 on the season. Penn Yan, they already took down Irondequoit, like I mentioned, and they lost to Topsail, but all their other wins are kind of one-sided. So Bailey Cooper, Bailey Cooper. That's all I'll say there, Carl.
Yeah, like, spoiler alert, player of the week, Section 5 best type of thing. She's going to be the break glass in case of emergency if I need to put someone up there, because what she's doing down there, the Class D level, is bonkers. She leads Section 5 right now in points and goals scored. I imagine if I looked right now at her game, I imagine she has like a 5-goal game in here somewhere. Yep, she just did it in her last game. So like she just does, and she did it against Thomas. So it wasn't like she did it against a fellow Class D foe. A phenomenal player who is just a sophomore, if I'm not mistaken. Like, yeah, just a sophomore. Like, Lord have mercy. I do not envy those Class D teams when they got to see her for the next 3 years, because she's out there doing her thing.
Yeah, she's got 34 goals this season. She is averaging 4.8, just under 5 goals per game. So, yeah, if you want to beat Penn Yan, you got to stop Bailey Cooper. And so far, no one really has been able to do that. So that's for our state rankings so far. We got in Section 5. The boys lacrosse rankings, they said, are going to come out next week. So we'll be talking about that in 2 weeks when we're back here for the high school huddle. Let's move now on to our games to watch. Games coming up in the near future that you should have your attention on. Carl, who are you watching?
We're going to go to boys lacrosse, a little crossover matchup between Class B and C foes. Canandaigua on the road at HFL. This will be next Tuesday, April 23rd. Canandaigua 5-2, coming off of a brutal loss to Victor in overtime, low-scoring game, and then also lost to Baldwinsville out of the Syracuse area the following game, but they've bounced back since then. And then HFL, who was 5-1 on the year, a 1-goal loss to Spencerport. Both of these teams trying to figure out where they are in their respective classifications. Canandaigua led by Sean Ovani, and then Mike Bells is a new name that I haven't seen so far in recent memory. And then HFL, a who's who of guys. Drew Angelo, I imagine, the brother of Shea Angelo, who is a phenomenal player in her own right in lacrosse. Grady Guberle, Quinn Kelborn, and then Chase Perriman leading the way. If I'm not mistaken, I think my boy Chase is a Syracuse guy. Hold on real quick. Is my boy Chase a Syracuse guy? He's a Bonnie's guy. Okay, I still give him love, though. He's a Bonnie's guy. So regardless, they got 4 guys who are studs over there as well. Gonna be a good matchup. Obviously, these teams won't face each other in sectional play, but a good measuring stick to see where they are so far this year.
I think Drew Angelo might be the Syracuse guy, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, he is going to Syracuse. I believe he handles the draw controls there. So that'll be a great matchup. And Canandaigua, living up to their reputation, certainly in recent years, of being a low-scoring, defensive, grinded-out game. So far this season, they've already got a 5-4 win against Fairport, and they've got a 7-6 loss to Canandaigua there. So, never change Canandaigua. Unless, if you do want to change, we'll take the goals when we go out to go to your matchups. I'm going to go to the Diamond for my game of the week. A rivalry matchup that, usually we say these type of things don't need any dressing up. But when we dress it up, it gets even better. Aquinas taking on McQuaid. Aquinas, 5-0 on the season so far in Class A, one of 2 undefeated teams in the classification. They haven't really played too many impressive teams so far this season. They do play HFL today, so this McQuaid game on Saturday is going to be a real kind of test to see where the Little Irish stack up. McQuaid 2-5 to start the season, kind of a tough spring break trip for them. They did take a loss to Athena recently. They beat Penfield 6-4. And the other thing I want to point out about this game is going to be played at Honeoye Falls, Lima, part of the inaugural Lou Gehrig's, the Strikeout Lou Gehrig's Disease Baseball Classic at HFL. This is an event that's happened in Syracuse in recent years, and now it's coming over to Rochester. You got a great slate of games on Saturday. HFL Eastridge, Mendon Sutherland rivalry game, East versus Bishop Kearney, East undefeated so far in the season, Wilson School of the Arts, and then Aquinas McQuaid. So a great day of baseball in general. And that 7 o'clock matchup is going to be a dang good one, just to see how these 2 rivals play against each other and how they stack up in their respective classifications.
I like that little format. Got the rivalry games in one venue. We all get to square off against each other. Make it easier for the personnel, the media people who want to go out there and cover that event too. Get all those nice games in one spot. But of course, you got to cap off the night with McQuaid and Aquinas. McQuaid's record is always funny this time of year because they either dominate down south, and you're like, oh my gosh, they're great. And then if they don't, you're like, well, they went down south and played against all these darn good teams, so we really don't know where they stack up yet. So like you mentioned, be a good opportunity for them to figure out where they actually hang in Section 5. And then Aquinas, I mean, who doesn't want to beat up on their rival? I don't care if y'all good, great, or trash, or we want to take y'all down. So that's always some good motivation right there in that game.
Yeah, that should be a great day of baseball. I'm not going to make any guarantees because I haven't talked to him about this, but I'm sure Paul Gotham's going to be over there Saturday. So if you want to read all about it, we love our folks over there at Pick and Splinters. Be sure to give them some love as well. That'll do it for us today on the High School Huddle. Like I mentioned, we're going to be off next week for the NFL draft as the Bills try and fill the large giant void vacated by Mr. Stefan Diggs. But we'll have the award show for you next week on our Spotify page. Like I said, you can already find that at rochesterfirst.com. And then we'll be back in 2 weeks to talk some boys lacrosse and everything else that's going on in Section 5 sports. For Carl Jones, I'm AJ Fellman. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, rochesterfirst.com, and YouTube. That's all the places you can find us. For Carl, I'm AJ. It's time to break the huddle. We will see you next time.